Welcome to the Small Business Made Simple podcast, brought to you by socialmediaandmarketing.com.au. Being in business is never easy, but it can be simple, or at least simpler. Join me, your host Jen Donovan, every week where we focus on marketing, social media, and working towards simplifying your business. You with me? Let's do this.
Gonna dream it big, 'cause someone out there listening. Everyone's got a voice to give, and it's time I heard you whistling, 'cause there's no point at all, in dreaming small.
Why, hey there, my fabulous listener. Welcome to episode 195 of the Small Business Made Simple podcast. Thank you, as always, for lending me your ears today. I know you do have lots of choices out there, and there's new choices coming along all the time, but I really do appreciate you making me and my podcast one of your choices. If you're enjoying this podcast, and I would love you to take a screenshot and share it on your socials and tag me, because I would like to get to know you a little bit better as well. You listening to this podcast, but it's kind of a one-way conversation until we can meet online or offline. So that would be awesome if you would do that. Don't forget, you can find all the show notes for this particular podcast at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/195. Before I get started on today's episode though, how did you go last week with last week's episode? Of course, we chatted about lead magnets, and I'd love to know if you produced something after listening to that, or started to scribble notes about what your next lead magnet or your first lead magnet could be, or if you took any action at all. Let me know. I'd love to know. You can drop me a post, and you can tag me inside the Like-Minded Business Owners Facebook group, because, I'd love to know how you were. A few people reached out and we're working together to do their lead magnets, but, for the other couple of hundred people that listen to this podcast, or several hundred people that listen to this podcast, I'd love to know if you took any action. Because remember, the world doesn't need more people aiming to do something. The world needs more action takers. But on to today's podcast. Today, I have a guest on the podcast, and his name is Troy Brown, and his business is called Xbert, spelt Xbert. Troy Brown actually founded and ran a highly successful marketing agency for about 12 years before moving on to do the same thing with a digital agency for another 8 years. He and his team have delivered projects across Australia and New Zealand and Asia for both blue chip and government clients. But after some serious issues in the financials of his business, including an employee committing expense fraud and decisions being made on inaccurate data, it led him to a breakdown of that company, which he actually was then, I guess, this is see a problem, solve a problem thing. He developed the program we're going to talk about today, which is called Xbert. Again, XBRT. It's software dedicated to helping small business owners and their advisors make the right decisions because they have accurate data. So we're going to talk about, what is that thing, some top tips for tax time, obviously. And of course, this is a piece of AI technology. You might be noticing a theme this year. We're talking a lot more about AI and the future of business and what that looks like. So I'm super excited to, of course, have Troy on the podcast. And this interview, of course, is perfect timing considering the financial year is coming up. And we all need to be looking at our finances, not just now though, but we are looking at them in the vision at the moment of, sending that best version or that most accurate version we have of them to our accountants, of course, in less than a month's time to do that. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me who's trying to send the most accurate or the most, the best version. Anyway, let's not talk about my finances, although, Xero, I love Xero, keeps me in check. But I'd really encourage you to take a listen to this podcast, listen to my chat with Troy, both his story and what this piece of AI technology can do for your business and what that looks like. It's a really important conversation to have. I think, as I mentioned in previous podcasts where we've talked about artificial Oh, I'm not even tell you what I almost said then. Artificial intelligence is the word that I should have said. Because some people are so scared of AI. And I really think that part of my podcast and making small business simple is realizing that there are definitely pieces of AI out there who can make our business life simpler. And this chat with Troy is definitely going to talk about one of those. So, anyway, I'm not going to hold you up any longer. Here's my chat with Troy. Of course, you can find all the links to Troy and his business by going to the show notes at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/195. But here's my chat. Troy, welcome to the podcast. I'm pretty excited to talk about your piece of intelligence that's going to help small business owners. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Happy to be on board.
Yeah.
Some value. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your business, just for my audience who may have not have crossed paths with you just yet?
Okay, yeah. So Troy Brown, I'm one of the co-founders of a new sort of innovative piece of tech called Expert. Stands for Expert Business Alerts. It's like a data quality toolkit that helps sort of businesses, alerts. It brings things to the surface for in business finance to help businesses, make smarter decisions. Prior to that, my background is I used to run a big marketing agency in Sydney for about 15 years, and a digital agency. Very successful, 30 up to 30 staff or so. Great times, low times, hard times. Yes, that sort of I ended up closing that business, unfortunately, after so many good times and making so many good friends, based on some financial decisions that had to be made, and just not having clarity on the finances. A lot of just errors in the finances, some money disappearing into accounts that I didn't realise sort of what was going on. Caused a lot of sort of stress and arguments, and just processes in the business that you just got laxed over time. I guess I was pretty young, and things took off sort of pretty quick. And when you are sort of successful, you get a bit lazy with a few things, but and sometimes some of those little things that you get lazy with can really bite you on the bum, I guess. And that's some big lessons I learned. So I thought, after pulling myself out of the grave after that one, it was sort of like, how can I help other businesses sort of not go through similar things, right? Yeah, so that's where Expert's sort of born. I teamed up with a school friend, to be honest, into the tech industry, Aaron Whitman, and it was sort of like a collision of crises. He was sort of going through something with a business where money was sort of getting moved around to sort of devalue his exit. So it was a bit. We thought, okay, so we'll combine all those stories together, and we'll build some tech. Yeah, so that's what we're doing today. We're sort of building that Expert out, and yeah, it's all systems go. So it's good.
Yeah. Great. So from the little that I know and the couple of conversations that we've had, because of course we met at SMB Digital in Sydney a couple of months ago, the program that you have built and the piece of AI that you built was really, I guess, somewhat based on the crises that you were going through at the time. You were like, so how can I make sure that this doesn't happen to other small businesses? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess if I sort of dig deep into some of those things that sort of can happen, and where I think, other businesses can get some value out of what may happen, in your business. And I guess the first thing sort of comes with, processes in your business, to make sure you've sort of got those processes right. And I guess with your finances, you get a bit, she'll be right. The reports look good. My creditors are more than my debtors or something like that. There's a nice gap there. And I guess unless you're sort of looking at those on a regular basis, you can't be 100% sure that they're accurate. What you're looking at is accurate. So I guess that's sort of what happened to me. And by the time you sort of dig deep into them, it can be, and get the answers that you need, it can be quite a while before you realise a decision that you made shouldn't have been made, right? So, so some of the things I sort of like to bring to the surface with people are, if you're trying to make decisions on your business, like you should be asking your finance team. The first simple thing you should be asking your finance team is what you're looking at is, when was it updated? When was the last time it was updated, right? Like you shouldn't be making decisions with month-old reports. Like you just shouldn't be. Anything can happen any day within your business, and if you need to make smart decisions like hiring or purchasing, or letting people go, you need to be able to do it with up-to-date data.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of secondly, I guess, is how complete is that data? Right, so maybe it's not fully complete. Maybe it's just been chucked in there. I'll come back and tidy that up later, recode that where it should be later. And that brings you to sort of how accurate is it? So how accurate is that data? Is there, how consistent is it being coded? Is it where you file entries of your books? Have they gone into the same account categories as they do last time? So how many? It's like, well, everything's going into the printing category. Well, then you're not really making smart decisions for your travel allowances or your hiring allowances. And if money coming in is not going into those cost centers, then you could be making wrong decisions there. And that sort of comes to the validity of what goes into the books. Like, why is it being coded in there? Is it valid? Is there fraud? Is there fraud in my books? So,
or has a rule been set up wrong? Like if I think of Xero, you set a rule up wrong at the start, and it could be a long time before you go back because you just click the OK button. I set up a rule for that. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. So rules are there, and you set them up, right? But things change, right? And you might leave that rule running for a year. That means you don't go and check the contact record again, and a whole bunch of stuff can happen, I guess, when that, and I can definitely run you through those things. I guess, and that sort of brings you to the point of who manages your books, right? So it's is it you? Do you have an internal team, an external bookkeeper? Is there a team? Is actually a team of bookkeepers, right? An external team. And that sort of comes down to that consistency. Someone might be coding things different ways to others, and that ends up giving you sort of those messy reports. And if you are sort of outsourcing your bookkeeping to an external bookkeeper, those bookkeepers at the moment, there's a big trend in there where they're trying to make their business successful. They're outsourcing the work as well, to Asian countries to sort of bring down their costs. And so I talk to a lot of bookkeepers, I guess, and it's sort of like they're on a lot of fixed fee sort of services, and I think you're really not getting value for what you do. And I think every business wants to make sure they get value, and I think you bookkeepers are going, you're screwing your bookkeeper down. I go, what are you screwing your bookkeeper down for? I mean, they're the ones that have got to get your stuff tidy. Like, get them time to make these things tidy. It's not about $300 a month or move on. Someone's offering me $250 a month for a bookkeeping service. It's like, just stop. That's the last place that you should be trying to save a bit of money. You know what I mean? Like, it's sort of like what I did. It's like, you try and do it inside yourself. You do it for yourself for a few years, but it's such a time-consuming thing, and you just whack it in there thinking, there's she'll be right mentality. And I just think, with thousands of errors, thousands of transactions that go through businesses, you're only human, right? Things are going to go wrong, and you've got fraudulent things coming in. You don't detect them, and you're an outsourced bookkeeper. You're not paying enough. It's just getting things done, and things just they get missed.
Yeah, so Expert, the program that you've built, is, I guess, a solution to this. That's the idea of this, is finding these data errors, these anomalies that might happen in your business. So I'd really like to get into that, and I'd also really like to get into what are some of the things that that it's found that I guess could nudge anyone listening to go, ooh, I need to have a look at that as well. So what are you finding that Expert is finding in people's books?
Okay, so I mean, what Expert does, it's it's like, it's a mixture of, just checking data. It's a mixture of, artificial intelligence checks. There's a bit of machine learning in there that sort of learns about your data over time. It looks for patterns, anomalies and errors and things. But so we're looking for, bookkeeping anomalies and errors, inconsistencies and things. We're looking for things like duplicates, things that might be, cash risk, things in your payroll that look a bit odd or not complete for records to be, recorded. We're looking at, tax and GST, and a lot of fraud happens around GST. And we sort of just look for unusual activity. So we've probably got about, I think we're up to about 65 little algorithm checks that run through your books, and they do it on a daily basis, right? So I always say, you need to have that update data, and you need to know about these things now. You don't need to know about them when your books are updated in a month, right? Because you've made a decision now. And if you find out in a month that there was a gremlin in there that could be a lot of money or could have a flow and affect other little gremlins in your books, then it can literally be game over, right? It really can be. I always like to stress the importance of these little things because I've been through it. And just recently, so what we've actually been finding, I did a sample of our data of our accounting files that are connected to our system, like 3,000 files we sort of looked at.
Mm-hmm.
And in those 3,000 files, we found data quality risks of 92% of those files. 92% of 3,000 files. So what's that? About 2,800-ish files in that.
So a file is a business. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So when I say a file, I mean a business. So that's 3,000 business files that we've looked at just in a sample set we pulled out the other day. I said, grab me a sample set. I want to know. I need to get some data out of this. I really want to know what's hurting people to have these type of chats.
Yep.
So if I drill into those, I've got a few sort of things I could talk about in some of those things. One of the big things I guess we check for, and people are so lazy about because it just takes so much time, is GST and ABN records, right? So you're meant to put your ABN record against every little transaction that you ever spend money on, right? You're meant to check these type of things. And of the data that we've sort of been looking at, I've got 79% of those 3,000 files had risk issues in this area where they haven't checked the data quality they haven't checked their contact records for ABNs, which means they haven't checked whether or not they're GST registered. Okay. So 79% of those files, there was risks in these type of areas, right? And what we do with these risk things, we calculate the amount of money associated with those transactions. So on average, there's $77,000 per file, so per business, of risk. Okay. So that's $77,000 worth of, maybe wasn't paid, maybe paid GST to when maybe they shouldn't, right? So if I drill down into where that number sort of comes from, I can say 30% of those files have raised bills in their accounting software to non-GST registered people, unknown suppliers or cancelled companies, right? So, and that portion alone, there's about $10,000 on average a file, right? So they're throwing away $10,000 a year, right? So this is all calculated on about a year's worth of data. 66 actually went and paid those people, about $5,000, right? So they've definitely thrown away, right? So we try and pick it up when you've raised it just before you pay it, and we go, oh, you've raised this in your accounting system, you're about to pay it out. So there's about $15,000. And then you've got other things that we sort of check is that you've got when people use receipt software, where they push the receipts into their files to marry up with the contact records. So what we find in there, so a lot of fraud sort of comes through there where people are getting sent supplier bills with different ABNs on them, right? So it could be someone skimming GST, it could be someone using someone else's ABN, things like that. So in that area alone, on each file on average over a year, there's $43,000 worth of risk, right? that has been found that the bills that have come in have got different ABNs on their attachments than you are coding that to on the contact records on your supplier records within your books. Right, so that's a lot of money. Like that's $43,000 on average over those. Well, what's that? There's probably about 1,500 files in there. So that's a lot of money that could be fraud or whatever. So we bring that to the surface. I could harp on about that. So a few other areas, and even like just putting expense claims in, right? Like you really need a process of expense claims within your business. We see a lot of expense claims going into the books that don't have those attachments on them. So there's really no way to know if that was legitimate expense, from your employees. Like, is there, if you're in a big, large organization, the process is, just give your expenses to the bookkeeper. Yeah, just maybe putting a number in, reimbursing, but you really don't know what it's for. So a lot of money gets lost in that area. And what else do we check? So other things we check are like bank statement lines missing. They've been deleted. So you've obviously got your bank feed sort of hooked up. But we will be able to check whether or not a bank statement line actually gets deleted. So think about somebody might be spending money in your company, and there could be your bookkeeper. Could be your business partner who manages the books, is spending money somewhere, and then goes, I don't want that to appear on the books. I'm going to delete this bank statement line that's coming through your bank feed, and no one will ever know about it, right? So we detect those type of things. So bank statement lines missing, and it could be a spend money transaction, could be incoming money transaction. So it could be 10 grand comes in, 10 grand goes back out. Right? Well, what happened there? Just got deleted. What was that all? What was that about? It could be sort of someone taking money out of the business. So when I look at the stats on that one, I think it was like 33% of bank statement lines go missing on those 3,000 files, right? And on average, the average amount of money in that area is about $101,000 a year disappears, right? Now, we're talking about sort of, businesses, small businesses up to a sort of couple of multi-million-dollar businesses in that 3,000 set. But on average, there's 100 grand disappears, $100,000, right? So what's going on there? So it's something that's really important to have a look at. Just bank details changing, right? So that's always one of those ones that always should be kept an eye on. If anyone ever asked you to change a bank account, then I hope you've spoken to them, that they've told you, not just an email that's come in and with an invoice on it. You go to pay it and go, please change my bank account details. That should be, that's a check. That's a phone call. It's like, please check, please check those ones.
There was something on TV not so long ago where a real estate agent paid out a deposit to someone because they changed their bank account details over a text, which of course it wasn't them. So yes, and I just thought, wow, that's just incredible. Like the amount of checks that you need to do, checks and balances you need to do to make sure these things. So that's interesting that, this piece of software can pick that up as well.
Yeah. I mean, one of the other really important things that we've checked, and we've sort of, I'll tell you a true story, is a bookkeeper told me they took over a file. They took over a file from some other bookkeeper. It was an internal bookkeeper. So it was a business having his internal bookkeeper. And he was just like going, my numbers aren't adding up. After years and years, he just felt like he was, losing money, didn't know where it was sort of going. He's gone and got a new bookkeeper. The bookkeepers, we've raised an alert, which we call, it's an employee has the same bank account details as a supplier does in your books, right?
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a great little one. So we detect that. So it worked out that this internal bookkeeper was spending money to a supplier, but it was actually paying themselves, right? So it was someone that the business thought they was always part of their business. Like I was in manufacturing, it was like, and money was just going out, drip feeding out on a sort of regular basis and being part of jobs, right? So that turned out to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so just that little check alone, right, is worth its weight in gold.
Because there is a lot of trust that we have. Like, we have a lot of trust in our bookkeeper, we have a lot of trust in our accountants, and we have a lot of trust in the software that we use for these things, these monthly subscriptions that we pay for. So sometimes obviously that trust hasn't been earned just yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad to say, but you hear these horror stories, right? You hear horror stories of fraud, you hear horror stories of just making wrong decisions or having business arguments. Like one of the other things that we sort of check is, like when things are coded in, when you're looking at those accounts and go, well, there's a lot of money getting spent in there, and you just gut feel is it's not right. You need to dig in there, right? Because somebody could just be putting their personal expenses through it. You know what I mean? So not only are they going in there, that could be a business partner, filing away expenses. You're looking at that report firstly going, well, I'm making decisions on how much money I spend on there or how much profit I make there. And it's not right, so you end up making a smart decision down the road. And by just digging into those accounts, you might find that, it might lead you down the path of who spent it, who put that in there, why'd that go in there? Oh, Fred told the bookkeeper that's where I need to code it. And go, okay, well, Fred, what are you spending this money on? Oh, that was a personal holiday I thought I'd put through the business. What are you doing that for? What are you doing that for? Oh, my life's not going too well at the moment. I've got a gambling problem. I'm, my property price, I can't sell my house or whatever, right? So lots of stuff, like a lot of stories, happen. That you just little things that you can find, you can dig deeper, and it leads you down a road, and you go, oh, right.
Alarm bells. So I guess for anyone who might be listening to this is probably in a cold sweat right now about their finances as such. But what sort of questions should people be asking? Should small business owners or business owners be asking their outsourced bookkeeper or internal bookkeeper or accountants and that sort of thing about all of this that we're thinking about these anomalies that might be found? Like, is there some questions that you can suggest that starts conversations like this?
Well, I keep it really simple. I guess I say, firstly ask your internal team, like set up processes and go make sure you follow the internal processes. Now that could be just, like, in this day and age, most people are sort of using one sort of invoicing tool, but people are still sending out invoices based on a Word document or whatever, and they just send them out, right? It still sort of happens. So, the process should be there that someone like the director or someone signing those off, because you may have two account managers sending out those things. One account manager might be away, and this is actually what did happen to me. So the other account manager sends out the invoice. So next thing you know, you've got two invoices shown on your reports. So you don't. Yeah. So in my case, it was another invoice went out, and I went, okay, so there's $250,000 sitting there. That's all good. Where the company's in good shape. The money doesn't land, does it? You're sort of going, why hasn't this landed? But then when you dig deeper and you've already waited 30 or 60 days, because it's someone that takes forever to pay you. So you've waited 30 to 60 days for your bookkeeper to come back and goes, I think that was a duplicate. I think they actually paid this the month before. I think, someone else the other account manager sent that invoice out 2 months ago. So the other one did not, right? So it was like, so next thing you know, you've got money that's never going to come in. So those internal processes are really important to follow. So make sure you sort of set those up. And that way, and then it's the information that goes to your bookkeeper and your finance team. Okay, so that's sort of part of that process is the information's got to be right. And people should be made accountable for it. And, directors should be looking at that information and signing it off too. Before it even gets to the bookkeeper, right? Everyone goes, I've got a trusted team. I sort of trust them, but at the end of the day, it's the business owner's hard sweat and money that he's putting up. He's the one taking on the stress. It just should be made time to be checked. So those internal processes are important. I guess asking your finance team after that point is that, everything that you look at and make decisions on, you need to know, firstly, is everything being reconciled? Has it all been reconciled, right? Even things like your draft invoices and bills. Sometimes those things get added into sort of P&L reports or creditors and debtors reports, and you don't know if that draft is a draft that it's not going to get sent, that it was done somewhere else. You don't know if that bill is, if it's a draft bill or is it a real bill. Most of the time it's probably a real bill that is going to affect those numbers, right? So it's like you need to get them in there. So if they're draft bills, get them in there. Don't muck around. And so make sure those reports, everything's reconciled and everything that you make a decision on is up to date. So decision time, I want to know those reports are up to date. And if it's not up to date, what isn't up to date? What's the numbers around those unreconciled things or those draft things? Really important. And then the hard question, because you trust your finance team, is stand up and ask them if it's accurate. Ask them, is it right? Have you checked it? Have you double checked everything in here? Like, have you checked it? Have you gone and checked every ABN record? Have you, everyone that we've paid money to, have you checked that they're registered with GST? Have you checked? I'm telling you that, like, those stats there, it's too hard to check thousands of records, right? Especially if you're outsourced to another bookkeeper. I mean, there's awesome bookkeepers out there. There's some shonky ones too, right? So a bookkeeper told me the other day, it's my business owner's job to make sure the contact records are up to date. So expert's not for us. I'm like, yeah, okay, well, I don't know how much they're paying you or what they do pay you for, but at the end, I would expect that to be checked by my bookkeeper for sure, right? So, because that's sort of because the other end of that story is that you think you pay your bookkeeper and everyone to do those type of things, right? So you've got to be sure about what am I paying for, and if you're not paying for them to do all those checks, then you should be doing it. Because at the end of the day, you sign a form that says, I agree that all the information I've given you is true and correct. So it's back on you, right? So you need to be diligent in that area about asking what you're getting. So ask about, is it accurate? And with tools like Expert, you should be saying, there's tools out there, finance team. Have we got that plugged into our system? Right? Have we got data quality, AI audit, integration, automation on our file? Right? You're only human. We should just have that checked. That can help pick up these fraudulent things. So, get up and ask if it's accurate. It's always a hard one when you trust your team, right? And you do, but it's like, it's not, you just can't. Like, it's your money and hard sweat at the end of the day. Like, just have something else. There's automation out there now, like what we're building, that can save your business at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's what I'd be asking. That's for sure.
Yeah. So a program like Expert, does it, just to dive into that just a little bit before we finish up, does it work in with programs such as Xero, such as QuickBooks? And I can't even think of the other one, the major one that I'm trying to think of right now, but it's an add-on rather than a whole accounting system of its own. Is that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So so you'll find us on those, Xero, QuickBooks and my MIB marketplaces. You can just, you literally just go to our website and you sign up for a trial and it prompts you just to connect your file. It's literally like that, you just connect your file, and I guess I come back to, it's like, we've made it super affordable for businesses to check, to save their business. I think, it can be as little as sort of 80, I think on a low plan, it can be as little as $84 a year. If you don't have a lot of transactions, it's as little as $84 a year can be finding hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of risk in your business, right? So I sort of, what we like to say to experts, like, what do you got to lose? That's not a lot of money, but expert, we go, well, we'll tell you, right? So, so that's how I sort of like to pitch it.
Yeah.
You've got to lose, connect your file up. It'll go and just run its magic, it just does that. And not only that, it just, if you're trying to run your books yourself, there's a lot of little checks in there that just say, hey, fix that, fix that, fix that, fix that. Hey, we'll check all those ABN records for you. You don't even have to do it anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what is so valuable. It's that time you get back, and bookkeepers and businesses, I guess they're sort of different beasts. So the bookkeepers, and this is where I think we've succeeded in building something. That's when your bookkeepers. So I guess we build a tool that your bookkeepers. We build a tool to save businesses, but at the end of the day, for our business model, it made sense to go to bookkeepers and accountants because it would scale quicker. Now we're coming back to the business owners who we build it for. Now, you're doing something right when your bookkeepers are starting to go, oh, I don't really want to share that with our business owners, right? Okay, so if you get my drift.
I just want to fix it.
Yeah, I just want to fix it. And, and we market ourselves as, we make your bookkeepers look like a rock star because they're the ones that are now able to code to you and go, hey, look what I found in your books, right? Yeah. And that's where the trust sort of thing comes in. And our product's all about sort of collaborating. I guess I remember drawing a little triangle sort of framework on a piece of paper, sitting with my mate, about how we could sort of build the product framework. And it's literally, your business owner, your accountant, and your bookkeeper. And, so how do you get all those guys to work better together? And we thought, okay, we could build an audit tool. We could make collaboration and workflow features that they can talk to each other better on these issues. All that sort of together with the smarter data, you can sort of build smarter insights, so that you can trust because, they should be, everything's being checked in the books. So now with your numbers that you're looking at are there, are a bit more accurate. And that in the end is sort of just builds that trusted relationship with all your advisors, right? And that's paramount. Like I said at the start, it's like use those people, pay them what they're worth, like they're worth their weight in gold. Just get these little add-on tools to help make sure that stuff's accurate. So that's sort of the framework.
So how does Expert build trust then? Because I know as a small business owner, and I know that some people listening right now just shuttered when you said, just connect it in, and it'll run through your data and have gone, ooh, you get to see all my data. What's the process of the trust there to ensure that the data that Expert now has access to is safe as well?
Well, obviously, like to get approved by Xero, QuickBooks, and MyOb, you go through a pretty stringent connection test. So you've got to go through all that. You've got to be sort of certified to do it. Everything that we have to prove just to them that our, where we host the data, what we do with that data is secure and safe. And for all Australian files, it's all on Australian shores. It's secured, with the best security that we can get. We have penetration tests on our data, make sure everything's good. So those approvals alone to be able to connect to the files is the tick of approval from those bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good. So and in terms of, I guess, you trust the things we find in your data, you'll soon trust what we do with it. I guess, like Aaron, my co-founder, he's actually on the data privacy board for Xero, right? So he's actually on the board for the data privacy for Xero. So you'll see him floating around webinars on data privacy with Xero. So so we obviously take that as number one. Yeah. To build trust. Yeah, that's obviously really important. And we will never do anything other than something like I did today, where it's just, I'm just overviewing what we find in that data. I think it's really important for businesses to know what is being found, what we find. I think it's really important. Businesses are always scratching around for an extra dollar to do this, do that in their business. It's right there in front of you in your data quality. There's a lot of money just sitting in there that you could be putting back on your balance sheet. So
I'm having a holiday, maybe, now the world
totally.
back up.
Yeah, it is. It's protecting that fraud or that chunky employee or whatever it is. Yeah.
Or just the data points, like you say, just the inaccurate coding of particular things and that, which, I think over my time as a someone who's been in finance for several businesses of my own, that's where when I send it off to the accountants, that's what they come back with often is, I don't think that's supposed to be in there, or I think you shouldn't have charged GST on that or something. Absolutely. But, by the time I get that, some of that data is, 6, 8, 9 months old. So
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Troy, for coming on and having a bit of a chat to us about, not only, the piece of software that you've got, but also, I guess, pointing out to some small business owners some of the things to be looking at as far as their finances are concerned. Because, like you say, we are all in business to make money, and we want to make as much as we can and don't want to lose it through bad bookkeeping. But if anyone wants to get in contact or learn a little bit more about Expert, what's the best way?
Just jump on our website. It's just X for X-ray, B for Bert, ERT, so it stands for Expert Business Alerts. The web address is just expert.io. You can just jump on there. We've got a great little chat on there. We've got real people behind there, you can talk to. But yeah, look, I recommend it's just for the sake of just having a quick squiz at your numbers, just sign up a free trial, just connect your file, see what we sort of found, if anything, and use those reports. So definitely just do that. Like I said, we are a bookkeeping accounting tool that was built for business owners. So now, we've sort of made it cost effective for business owners to get in there and check, because we want you guys collaborating with your finance team. So if you ever need to chat, just jump into that chat. Happy for you to go, hey, I want to talk to Troy. Someone will pass the message on to me, and I'm always happy to have a chat, learn about your business, learn about something that might have happened that'll help us build another, expert algorithm, as we call them. I mean, that's what it's all about. We're striving to build 100 of those at the moment. So yeah, I can't do that without everybody's input. So I want to hear some stories.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. Thank you so much again for coming on the podcast and sharing all about your piece of intelligence, but also, giving us something to think about when it comes to our finances. Appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Jan. Appreciate you having me.
Did you enjoy that podcast? I really hope you did. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope that it got you thinking about maybe your finances in general, but how this little piece of tech could actually help you. And of course, as Troy mentioned several times, can maybe help you save money, or at least make business life simpler. I met Troy at a conference in Sydney earlier this year, and I had a bit of a conversation with him, and I really wanted him to come on the podcast and talk about what he had created, because it really fitted in with my goal of this podcast, which of course is to make small business simple, or at least simpler. So I hope that you got something out of that. Again, you can find out more about Troy by coming to the show notes at socialmediaandmarketing.com.au/195. But that's it. That's it for another episode. Let's continue the chat in my like-minded business owners Facebook group. If you're not a member already, then hop to that. I've got some great guests coming up. Actually, I think next week we've got a guest that's talking all about entering awards, which it's an awards season. I have been super busy in the trenches doing the Australian Rural Business Awards with my business partner through Spend With Us, Buy From a Bush Business. So I'm all there for awards. So listen into that free chat inside the Like-Minded Business Owners Facebook group next Monday. Or, of course, if you're listening to this later than that, it will still exist there as a replay. So go and have a listen to that. Otherwise, I will be back next week for episode 196. Episode 200 is getting so close, so I need to have a bit of a think about how I'm going to celebrate that. But in the meantime, if we're not hanging out on social, come and get social with me. You can find me at Instagram, Facebook, and of course, LinkedIn. But whatever you do, remember, my small business peeps, as my opening song says, there is no point in dreaming small.
No time like the present. Tell it like you feel it, say it proud, be true, and let us see you for the star that you are. No point in dreaming small.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Yorta Yorta people, on which I record this podcast and conduct my business today, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I extend this respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today as well.